I was just gonna build a portfolio, get a job at an ad agency, and stop writing. Your parents teach you to never give up. You're gonna get what you want, but something great happened out of me just hitting rock bottom. So the point is, kids, give up and see what happens.
Welcome back to 25 Months. My name is Tejas Hullur, and I'm here with my co-host, Jack Neel. And today, we have a very spectacular guest. He's a superb storyteller, a comedian.
No one's writing for me, and no one's playing me. What am I, dead? Wait, seriously?
An actor. He's very into literature, has his own book coming out, and has over 1 million TikTok followers by doing comedic narratives and more. It's Mr. American Baron. How are you?
American's my first name. Yeah, that's right.
Americans are...
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the podcast. This is I haven't done a lot of podcasts, so this is one of the firsts.
Dude, we're so pumped. I see your TikToks and I'm just like, I want to get into your head with like what goes through your entire process, everything. We'll talk all about it. But just so like a reminder, yeah. This podcast is centered around a stat that the average career span of a content creator is 25 months. So we're here to talk about what you can do to ensure longevity in the space. I mean, assuming you want to be a creator.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's weird because I was actually just having this conversation today about how long TikTok's going to last, how long I can even last in this environment, in this pressure. And it's weird because the conversation can go many ways. It can either go, I've got to take more breaks so I don't burn out, or I've got to start a YouTube so I can financially support myself. The conversation goes in all these zigzagging ways, and then I don't know where it ends up, but I think it's just gonna, for me at least, it's just gonna end up with the book. Hopefully, that's gonna be the big income source for me, and I haven't even skimmed merch as they call it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to dive into that. Like in context for me, I know I was saying that a little before, but this is the stuff I love to think, because again, to me, you and an entrepreneur are synonymous at this point, right? It's like you have attention online, like you have something that companies hire marketing specialists, these people like and pay them large salaries to do. I mean, you're averaging a crazy amount of views. And like you can do anything if you have an audience. But so I just want to understand a little bit, Baron, about like who are you before you started considering yourself a creator? Like what were you doing as kind of your full-time job and such?
Yeah. Oh, so in terms of a job and things, I've been doing things here and there. I drive a tractor. That's still like, that was the day job and is currently. But, before TikTok, I was essentially just writing short stories, script ideas, a novel that ended up in the sock drawer. I was stereotypically the writer that was going nowhere. And I wasn't even trying to like get picked up by a literary agent or anything. So I wasn't even trying. I was just writing and then sulking in the failure of it. And I think this is super easy when you're writing without any feedback to hide behind this veneer of I'm an artist and no one understands me and the world is never going to get me. And you can almost justify your lack of success or lack of progress in your career with that veneer. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was just writing and not trying to go anywhere with it.
What got you into writing in the first place? I think it's like, especially my generation, like I couldn't tell you anyone who reads. And so like to hear a writer on the other side of it is just so interesting. Like I want to pick your brain about that because you're creative from day one then. Right, you have the creative mindset. You understand storytelling, which I argue is the most important skill anyone can have today. Right, if you can storytell, you can tell anyone of anything and make like you can persuade anyone to do anything. It's sales, it's psychology. It's quite literally the only reason. Yeah, it's quite literally the only reason we're all interested in anything. So breaking down where you get your storytelling ability, I think is very important because that's what sticks out to me as a viewer of your content today. You're able to, in 1 minute, give me this whole perspective, which I will get into, but why writing in the beginning?
I think the only way to describe that urge to tell stories, or the urge to, I think, give people feelings, which is what I call it. I don't think it's the arts. I think it's the feelings business, because what you're doing is you're giving people emotions. You're giving people these feelings that don't quite have words. And I think the urge is when you're at a dessert shop with your friend and you try something unbelievable and you instantly have this urge to give it to your friend and say, hey, here, try it. I think that's what it is with writing, for me at least, is I'll read a terrific novel, I'll watch a phenomenal movie, and whatever I'm feeling, I want others to feel that. I want to say, hey, here, feel this, and obviously they're not going to feel the same thing from the same movie. So I've got to create something that'll create that feeling. To me, that's the closest way I can come to describing the urge. I think I started writing when I was 16, 15. I started writing short stories mostly, and that's where it usually starts with a lot of novelists, is you start with the short stories. Yeah.
So what you're concentrating on is basically taking the feelings that you are in the moment and trying to best describe that to the viewer, right? Is that
absolutely? Yeah, you're packaging up a feeling in the package of a story and giving it to people, and that's kind of what I see myself doing on TikTok. I hope I'm doing it, but
so just for clarification, you have a background in story. You were writing stories when you're 15, 16. Like, did you do any acting? Did you do any like short films? Like, when was your first appearance on video? Was that TikTok?
No, I did 2 short films on YouTube. One was for a class, and the other was I just wanted to do it. And that was my first time filming something and putting it out in the world. They are privated on YouTube, so you can't find them anymore. But that was my first attempt. And that was around the time, Wes Anderson was becoming pretty popular, was kind of getting revamped with Moonrise Kingdom. And so there's a lot of those Wes Anderson-y symmetrical shots here and there. So that's Wes Anderson, I guess you can say, was a big influence in terms of me looking at this novel writing energy and this short story writing energy and transferring that to film.
So did you go to college for film?
No, I went to college for I went to university for psychology, which is essentially code for me. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with university or what I wanted to study. So I just studied psychology. I thought it would be useful for the advertising industry, which is what I wanted to go into. And I never quite did anything with it, of course.
When did you start considering yourself to be a quote unquote creator?
I think there was a click for me, and partly it was a click in my own head, and partly it was a numbers thing. Mm-hmm. I started TikTok kind of as a resignation of just giving, of all my hopes and dreams, so to speak. I know that's a cliche, but I really wanted to write and I wanted to make movies, and I had no idea how to do it. So I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm not going to pursue this anymore because I don't know how to get into it. And she urged me to download TikTok to pursue it. And I said, well, I'm just going to download TikTok so I can get a portfolio for an ad agency. I wanted to go into an ad agency. I wanted to get a job there. And
wow. So your girlfriend,
by a year into making TikToks. What's that?
No, I said, so your girlfriend was the person who got you onto the app in the first place.
She made me download it. She was the one who said, this is a stupid dancing app right now. And then in a couple years, like YouTube was a stupid cat video app, it's going to be a big one.
Well, is she a creator herself? Was she making content on the app?
She's on the app as Trina_talks. Her name's Katrina, but we all call her Trina. So she is a consultant at PwC. And so she has this business sense that I can't even fathom, honestly. And so she, of course, was the one who kind of foresaw TikTok as an investment, really. It's not just for fun. It's really, you're investing yourself, you're investing in your career, your future, yada, yada.
It's so interesting, like Baron, talking to you, because we see just interviewing people on this podcast, we really see two types of creators. We see the creator that all they want to do is create. They could care less about any money involved, any clout involved, like the bright, like Hollywood vision. And like this is something even like Michael Gruen talked about. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Josh Richards, Bryce Hall, like those Sway boys. But they talk about Josh Richards being like the business mind, and like Bryce Hall, like he never even like wants to step foot into that realm. Like all he wants to do is make YouTube videos, and just like share his story to his audience. So, I mean, that's super cool to see that, like, especially you have someone in your life, like your girlfriend, that can kind of like help you navigate that business space while like all you want to do is create. That's super cool.
I wouldn't be here without her, honestly. I know it sounds kind of strange because she's not a writing partner. She's not a creative partner. She's essentially just handles the business side of it all. And she keeps that order in what is naturally a chaotic environment in the arts. It started off that way, by the way. It started off as like this portfolio for an ad agency, and then it kind of clicked around 500,000 followers. Maybe that's where it kind of clicked in my own head, because I started making things that I wanted to create rather than the dad jokes that I was doing.
Well, I don't want to marry him. No, honey, you are such a queen. Yeah, look, don't feel pressured to do anything you don't want to do. I love him, but I'm just not ready for marriage. When did he propose? I mean, technically, he didn't ask me.
And when you start doing what you want to do, that's generally where you can grow a lot more, because people kind of sense that authenticity, I think.
Yeah.
And it's also where you just start to take yourself a little more seriously. And that's what I was doing here. I was just creating what I wanted to create.
You kind of hinted at it with Wes Anderson, but the stuff I see of yours on TikTok is so different, right, than anyone else, right? And I think a large part of that is who you've been influenced by. So Wes Anderson, it seems to be a big influence for you. Is there any other influences of yours in the film world, and maybe in the whole Gen Z TikTok world? Of such?
Certainly the film world, definitely. I would say Woody Allen, the Coen brothers, Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld. For me, it was the Coen brothers. If I ever make a career in filmmaking, I owe half my proceeds to the Coen brothers, because they're the ones that got me writing, honestly.
That's awesome.
And they deal in such a. It was my first look at. It was my first look at into these weird philosophical emotions that you didn't really quite have words for. You couldn't watch a Coen Brothers movie and say, I feel happy or I feel sad afterwards. You couldn't do that. You had to ruminate about it and chew it over.
And what's so interesting about that, Baron, is like a big key to success for many creators on TikTok is that they take something from somewhere else that's never been seen. And like traditionally, this is like Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, and they put it on TikTok. But you're taking a different approach in that you're taking it from like classical filmmaking and like old literary classics and like putting that into TikTok. So like, I mean, maybe you want to talk a little bit about your strategy when you first started.
When I first started doing what I wanted to do, which is where it all turned around, because before then I was just doing essentially dad jokes that are put into film. But when I started doing what I wanted, the way I saw it was I didn't want to be influenced by the internet. I didn't want to be influenced by other social media creators, so to speak. I really just wanted to be influenced by just the films that I grew up on, the films that changed me, the films that helped me understand how the world works, and bring that to TikTok. Because at the end of the day, you get over your snobbery over the platforms, right? You just got to respect the platform you're working in, right? I mean, TikTok, you got to respect the the style of that, the generally 1 minute style. You can go over now, but you got to respect the writing there. You got to respect the writing style of YouTube, and you've got to adapt and change. And I think you have to get over your snobbery very quickly. and you do.
I love it. I know one of my favorite quotes from Naval Ravikant is that you look at a bear, like the animal, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty interesting, right? You look at a unicycle, go, yeah, that's also pretty interesting. But you put a bear on a unicycle, and people are willing to pay for it, to pay for that experience, because it's just so out of the blue. And for me, that really encompasses what you're putting on TikTok, right? You go on TikTok, 99% of it, I think you could really classify under, just say, Gen Z culture, right? But you have TikTok, right? But you have just like traditional filmmaking, and you're that bridge. You put that on, and automatically I'm getting just hit with this new perspective. And so when I found it really interesting when you said that you willingly did not want to take inspiration from what was on TikTok already, right? So you said like, I want to make what I like. That's very unorthodox, because I think when you're on a platform and you're like, why I want to grow on this platform, when you start to shift your mindset of like, I want to grow followers, the first thing I would do is being like, what is everyone else who's successful on this platform doing? But you basically said, no, I didn't want to take that. So walk me through that decision. So you, like, I'm assuming you wanted to grow on TikTok, right? And you're like, but I don't want to do it how people are already doing it.
It's because I was afraid of trends. And I think if you're following trends, I followed a few of them, but I think if you're following it full time, you can get into the trap of losing control of your audience. And what I mean by that is, when you're creating for yourself, you are the judge and jury. You are the audience. And if you create content that pleases you, there's surely more people like you. You're not that unique, you're gonna find a pocket of people who are similar to you and have your similar interests. And so if you're pleasing yourself, you're pleasing that pocket of TikTok or of the internet or of the market. And if you follow trends, you could be following a trend you don't understand. I remember my dad really urged me to get on to actually write for radio when Garrison Keillor went off the air and Chris Thiele took over Prairie Home Companion. I thought it sucked. I still kind of do. And I thought there was a huge opportunity to kind of fill in that Prairie Home Companion space. And my dad was really urging me to. But the thing is, radio listeners are older. They're not younger at all. And I don't understand the older market. I understand me, and I understand my age range and my market. If I start writing for radio, I'm writing for a market I don't understand. And that's what trends are. You're going to start hopping onto something that you don't understand, and you can lose control very quickly.
So Baron, this is just out of my general curiosity, like, who do you believe is your audience? I mean, obviously Tejas and I love your videos. Like, I have a background in film. Tejas has a background in like filmmaking. And like that's probably how we came across you. But like, who do you think like are the kinds of people that are watching your videos?
It's a question I've been asking myself recently, and I've been trying to deal with because I think they are maybe the drama kids in high school. I think they are the readers. They are usually introverted for some reason. I couldn't tell you if there was one specific type, because I think I heard once from the guy on Vice News, he does that. He explores the underbelly of America in that van and that Borat suit. He was saying that once you hit 1 million subscribers or followers, you're going to attract all kinds of people. Like, that is all kinds of people right there. Before that, 500,000, that's a certain type of follower. That's a certain type of person. But the larger you get from there, you're attracting a wide and much more diverse range of people. And so you're inevitably going to piss a few people off, right? Because you've cast such a big net at this point.
And I'm sure you realized if you're not pissing anyone off, then like if you're not garnering the attention to piss people off, then you're not doing it right. You know, like you need to be big enough to where you're making people mad. Controversy still like encourages growth for yourself. So do you want this like big like widespread audience like to tell your story, or do you like want a niche following? What's kind of like your goal?
I like where I'm at right now. I like staying kind of small. I mean, I do have a number in mind, but no, I don't want to be like this mega star. No, I have none of those ambitions. All the filmmakers I admire, they sustain themselves through this pocket in the market, through their niche, and I like to stay in that niche because it keeps you creatively free. And so
yeah,
I don't really want a massive audience like that.
That's cool. I guess just for timeline's sake, then what if is there a certain month where you would have just said this is the start of my creative span? Like, was it last year? When did you start to, I'm assuming
it was last year. It was somewhere around, I want to say somewhere around fall of last year. I started making like 3 videos a day April last year. And it was very intense. It was unsustainable, clearly.
Yep.
But that's where the big growth happened. And then from there, I started doing what I wanted to do around fall of last year. Awesome. And that's kind of where things started going for me.
Great.
And you know, there's always the question of, was there one video that got you there, right? Was there one video that you know, made you go from pawn to king? And really, there's none. It was really just a slow burn. You just kept hacking away at it. And maybe the coming of age skit that I was doing, which is part of a trend.
Okay, Peter, we don't have much time. What do you mean? Age is coming. It's the coming of age.
What does that mean, coming of age? Age is always here.
Yeah, well, age is coming a lot quicker than we thought. I mean, look at your shoes. It's happening right now.
What are you talking about? I'm wearing my sneakers.
What the heck? Yeah, see? Next thing you know, we'll be talking about the weather and complaining about taxes. Look, that's ridiculous, all right? We're not turning into adults. We made a deal, you and me.
Never grow up.
That's right. Growing up is for suckers.
Yeah, no one's gonna get us to wear business casual.
No, sir, not us. Not a chance.
Yeah, I can come in on Saturday.
Honey, can you get the kids down here, please? We're gonna be late.
Dad, can I have a pet tarantula? Are you scared?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
No.
Well, I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah. See you when I see you.
That was probably the one video that got like a lot of attention, because I think Casey Neistat retweeted it, and I shamelessly screenshot that tweet, and I want to frame it because I grew up on Casey Neistat. So
I'm with you. Oh
so,
my gosh,
so let's say
I have always be closing tattooed on me.
Nice.
Because of Casey. Yeah.
So let's say that's your moment, Baron. Like the moment that Casey Neistat retweeted your video is the moment that you had like officially established yourself as, I'm a creator. Like, what do I create next to sustain this audience? So would you say this was like in October of last year about?
No, yeah, I'd say about October of last year, August, actually. August, September. Yeah. August, September.
Exactly a year. You were 12 months into your career as a creator. So, I mean, according to our podcast thesis, you're about halfway through.
Right.
So I guess like right now, right, you've seen success, you've understood TikTok, you're posting 3 times a day at one point. It's like, walk me through your process today of like, hey, you want to upload something tomorrow. What is start to finish of one of your pieces?
Start to finish, it's all in one day. So I'll come up with the idea, write it, film it, edit it, post it. I never quite have an idea of what I'm doing until the day of. So the process now is I'm posting every other day because I need to finish my book. So hopefully I can get back to that daily posting schedule, because I like that. I enjoyed that much more because you didn't put so much weight on the next video. You just wrote, you had to do it, you know, you have deadlines, so you just want to get it done. And usually when you just force yourself to do it, something good oftentimes comes out of that. So I'd really like to get back into that mode of not thinking as much and just doing more.
Yeah, it's cool. What about like, how do you go about ideating? Like when is it an idea? Is it things that you think about on like in, I don't know. For me, when I was doing, for example, talking head videos, I'd always struggle with that. Like, what am I doing today? And I found my best ideas when I took like a 20-minute shower and I just like let my mind go. And I was like, this is a good idea. Let me see if I can make this into a 45-second script and belt it out. But for you, I mean, your ideas are so, I think just there's so much to them. What does that look like?
You know, it's weird because I think Conan O'Brien said that if you overthink, you start to stink. Couldn't it be more true? I think my process is I overthink and I let it go for 20 minutes. Take a shower, take a walk, something, and you come back to it. And usually in that process of relaxing and letting go, something does kind of come to you. I think if you really, on days where you really got to force it out, when you have no muse coming to give you any inspiration, I think my process is I write a story. It doesn't have to be funny. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be a story. And then I attack it from different angles. How can I make this wittier? How can I trim the fat? How can I add more tension here? And oftentimes your better moments come subconsciously, at least for me. I think I don't consciously think of, oh, this will be a good motif if I put it in the background. This will be a good this or that. I do sometimes, but your best work, I think, comes when you force yourself to create a good story, or you focus on some other intention other than the intention that everyone kind of walks away with. Like I remember I did this muffin skit. It's where this muffin's all crumbled up, and this customer is telling the waiter that's not a muffin, right? And then the waiter's arguing with him, no, that's a muffin. It's just crumbled up. It still makes it a muffin. And people took that in so many different ways. I was so surprised at how many interpretations that elicited, but that was never my intention. I just wanted to create a cool skit,
Wow.
you know? So I think oftentimes just create something good and let people analyze the heck out of it.
I love that.
Another great example, you have a video, it starts out like, I think I'm in hell or something along those lines. And one of the shots, you have like a deer skull, and it's like perfectly positioned over the back of your head to where like it looks like you almost have devil horns. And like the theater kid, like film person in me is like, oh my gosh, this is like symbology for like Satan, or like something along those lines. Like, was something like that premeditated, or like did that just happen because like it was lucky with the shot?
I saw it and then it happened. So I didn't write that in. I just kind of, I was setting up the shot, and then I noticed the horns behind me, and I thought, oh, that'd be cool if I just did that. And so it's half and half. Half of it's all written out. Half of it is, what if we did this during the shoot? And notice I'm saying we, because me and my multiple personalities, we have to, we are the crew here. Everyone assumes it's a one-man band, but no, it's me and me.
I love it. You're starting to get technical with it, and I'm actually very interested in that. Of like, I know one thing that really drives your videos is the loop. You have some of the most perfect loops I've seen. I know. So we got like, you got an idea, right? And now you're like, let me film it. You said you write it out. What do you concentrate on once you have the idea? Like when you're writing it, when you're filming it, are you like, how analytical are you in TikTok? Because I mean, the app is pretty ruthless, right? If you make a bad video, your views will show, right? And so is there anything specific on TikTok, especially, or short form content that you concentrate on?
Let's see. Not really. I mean, there are some buzzwords. Like if you create something about a relationship or heaven or hell, you put God in there, or the alien. Usually I notice that does create a great introduction to the video, and people usually watch to the end because it's pretty interesting, or at the very least it hooks them. So I do have those in the back of my mind, but other than that, there's no formula. And in terms of the looping, I think a lot of people are curious. Like I notice in the lives, the question always comes up: is it hard to write loop videos? How do you write loops? Because I don't think I do have the best loops, but I think I have the best written loops. I think I try to write in a loop.
So you're firing me? No, we're replacing you. Which means you're letting me go. No, it means we're replacing you. You're letting me go. No, we're replacing you. Bob, you're letting me go. Replacing you. Okay, can I ask why? You ran after a thief. He was stealing the Book of Mormon. I was stopping him. It's company policy to let the thieves go. You're firing me for that? Well, we're letting you go. So you're firing me? No, we're letting you go. What does that mean, letting me go? Means we're firing you. I can't believe I'm getting fired for doing the right thing. See, the way we see it is we can replace stolen inventory. We just can't replace you. But you are replacing me. No, we're letting you go. So you're firing me.
So I don't try to just unnecessarily put in a loop at the end of the video where it doesn't actually make sense. I always try to create like a circular conversation. And the answer to whether it's hard to write a loop, it's no, and not really. It's no harder than writing in general, because loops and catch-22s exist everywhere. Like it exists in so many areas than we think. You know, the most famous one is the chicken or the egg. Which came first, chicken or the egg? Or you need to get a job to get experience. You need experience to get the job. These catch-22s and back and forths, they exist everywhere in life. So all you really got to do is just calm down and pay attention and write it down.
Yeah, I mean, one example of yours that comes to my head is like the one of getting a job, right? You said you need an address, or you need a home address to get like a social security number or like a birth certificate. I remember that. I was like, that's so genius. I felt like you were coming at me a little bit with the loop. So I make mine into loops too, but they're so unnecessary. Like I'll start mine with like, Lil Nas X is one of the best digital marketers to exist today, and that's like my beginning. And at the very end, I like do an explanation, and I'm like, so. And then I go, so Lil Nas X. I'm just like,
or you say, and that is why Lil Nas X.
It's an overly complicated world because Wall Street loves to use complicated terms to make it seem like only they can do what they do. Is my favorite quote from The Big Short.
Yours are very written, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of like almost like an Abbott and Costello thing. It reminds me of like the Who's on First, and like it ultimately like makes people watch your video again because they're like, wait, that whole thing connected, and it's like, wait, did this video even end? Like it's a little more obvious in Tejas' examples because it's like, and this is why, and like people have gotten used to that. But like you write it so specifically, it's like people like take a second, they're like, wait, is this was this at the beginning? And I'm sure that's great for your watch time. Tejas and I talk a lot about the analytics and how watch time is such a big one, and like watching a video twice is a big one, and like writing those loops that seem to have helped you a lot. Yeah.
I bring up the unnecessary loop thing because people came after me for it, of course, right? And so is a great loop word. You just say, so what about hamburgers? And I you notice it, you just I try to write around it. And the rewatch time for me is very important. I always try to create something where you do feel like you have to watch it again because you want to, or because you need to understand it a second time. And it is kind of an Abbott and Costello thing with the Who's on First Base, because I do Tejas, you might know about this, the J cut and the L cut, right? Mm-hmm. That's very useful, right? Because you can fit, back in the day when TikToks you're only allowed to do 1 minute. It was very useful to do L and J cuts, and I still use them because they're so effective. I try to use them all the time because that's how you talk in regular conversations. You're always overlapping each other. You're always interrupting each other.
Okay, whatever you do not ask how he is, how he's doing, how he's going. Why? No, that's so mean. Because he'll actually tell you how he's doing.
And it does kind of create that madcap Abbott and Costello effect.
Yeah, I love that. So it's interesting because you said you don't particularly concentrate on any one aspect when you're making a story, but I think you're very subconsciously that you are. Right. You said like you are concentrating on watch time. Are you concentrating, for example, like what your first 2 seconds, like your hook looks like? Are you, because I've talked to 2 creators. I've talked like me and Jack, when we were first talking, like we were spending 10, 15 minutes on that. But when I talked to like Dylan LeMay, right, he could care less what his first 2 seconds look like, just because for him, the hook is that odd perspective of that point of view on him making ice cream behind Cold Stone Bar. Right. So what about you? Where are you kind of in that spectrum of, am I fully concentrated on? I'm like, yeah.
I'm a believer. I do focus on the first 1.6 seconds specifically for me. It's you're either going to get them or you don't, and so if you don't get them in the first 2 seconds, yeah, they're gone. So it's the same with anything. It's the same with a book. It's the same with any article. It's the same with even with websites. If the websites doesn't load in I think they actually did a study where they said if they don't load in 4 seconds, people are out of there.
Wow. So why 1.6?
I noticed that was the time I was scrolling. If I wasn't interested in a video, it was about 1. And then I kind of noticed when I'm editing my videos, I noticed that 1, what feels like 1 is actually 1.6. So for me, it's the first second. If you're not hooked in the first second, you're out of there. And I noticed when I was editing, when I wouldn't look at the number, I'd say, yeah, that felt like 1 second, and it was actually 1.6. So that's, as a general rule, I always try to get them in the first 1.6 seconds, or let's say the first 2 seconds. And it can vary in terms of what the skit is. Like if it's an alien skit, I think you can be a little more flexible. I think I can do maybe 3 or 4 seconds because it's an alien. It's instantly weird, right? If it's God, that's instantly weird. If it's an instantly weird thing, I think you have a little more flexibility. But if it's just 2 guys in a car, unless they say something right off the bat that is controversial or hookish, I don't think you're going to get them.
So Baron, you say the first 1.6 seconds of a TikTok is the most important part of it. That is one of the most calculated things I've ever heard. And it's changes the way people, I'm sure creators watching this are going to be like, wow, that kind of changes the way I think about TikTok in general. I mean, something I did that was a very useful practice was I thought to myself, who is really on this app? Like who really makes up the majority of it? And it seemed to me to be like the 8 to 10-year-olds. It was like huge on TikTok at a point. So I got my 8-year-old cousin. I said, watch my video. And kids these days have such short attention spans. And I watched him and he was like, would laugh at random parts. And I realized what parts he was laughing at. It wasn't the parts that I thought were funny. It was because I put a funny picture on the screen. It was because I had something funny on my head. It's because I said things a certain way. And it's what we create is definitely not what's perceived. And you talk about this a lot with people taking different interpretations of your videos. And so something I think you should probably touch on is just the idea of sensory overload. So you say you create your videos to be watched twice. They're very calculated, in my opinion, whether subconscious or conscious. You wear different outfits, you have different accents, you do all these J cuts, L cuts. And these are things that most TikTokers aren't even thinking about. It just might not seem that calculated because you're used to the traditional media that's doing this to that level times 10. So let's talk about some other things that you do.
I studied commercials. I studied advertising for a little bit. Independently. So I definitely have that traditional influence of, you gotta hook them fast, kid. And, it's technically I think the reason I say 1.6 is because of what you just said with because people are always looking away. They're looking at other media while they're looking at your media. And I think overwhelming the senses is key, actually. I think you have to overwhelm them in the first 1.6 seconds. And you don't know you're being overwhelmed in 1 second. And I think that's why for me, the personal number is 1.5, because it's the subconscious number. You don't realize you want to keep watching until it's too late. You're already 4 seconds in. And for me, it's all about compacting the lines. It all starts with the writing. It all starts with what is the line funny? Is that line needed? Is that line moving the story forward? Is it creating any tension? I do analyze each and every line. I think that's where the most thinking and most time into these skits go. It's analyzing and just thinking each and every line to death until they start to stink sometimes, but that's where it's at. You just have to analyze the writing, and then everything usually falls into place once it's all written out. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is they want, especially with filmmakers, I think, with film students especially, is they tend to completely focus on the visuals, and they forget about sound. They forget about, most of all, the story. It's weird because I remember I was watching 8.5 last night by Fellini, and it's an interesting movie, but there doesn't seem to be a compelling story or a plot, which is fine. I'm not one of those people, but it's just a completely visually overwhelming movie, and you realize he's playing with the visuals because this is the 60s, and this film is not that old at this point. It's still a new medium. It's still a new art form. And so he is expressly experimenting with the newness of the visual audio medium. And for some reason, film students, and I think most creators on TikTok, seem to think that that's where it's all about, because they grew up on media where it was all about the visuals. And many, many times they forget the story because it's harder, I think. That's where it's the hardest. Is the writing and the story. So
I agree. Being able to create tension and releasing that in a way that's everything, right? For me, it's like, can I create a hook? Can I create tension? Can I release that tension in a way that's satisfying for someone to follow? That's it, right? And can I make that in a repeatable, scalable format, repeatable and sustainable format, right? That's success. It's just right there. But so just wondering if you could look back at in the last 12 months you've been a creator and do anything differently, what would it be?
It would probably be to create more of what I wanted, because no matter how much I've kept repeating that ever since last year, I've been creating what I wanted to create. It's still an urge you have to fight. You have to fight this urge of looking at the views, of looking at how many comments you got, making sure you didn't get any negative comments. You got to fight that urge. And to me, I'm still not bulletproof from all that. And I wasn't bulletproof back then either. So I think one thing I would change is I would get in the right headspace of not caring and not counting as much as I did.
I mean, that's the biggest struggle, I think, especially on TikTok. I know I said this early, it really is ruthless. Not only just because, I feel like you have a little cushion on YouTube. If you put out a subjectively bad piece of content, you're still your close followers, your super fans are going to view it. But on TikTok, it's you can have 1 million followers and a piece a short film that gets less than 10,000 views. If it's bad, and then don't even get us started on the comment section, right? On TikTok, especially.
I know.
So, how are you? I guess one question that we like to ask here, and I want to start asking more creators because it's not asked enough, is how do you go about, I guess, just a balance in life, especially as a creator? I'm finding myself sometimes I talked to Jack about this, of being always on. Right. I'm hey, should I, if I'm at a dinner, a special dinner, should I record this? Should I make a story out of this? Right. And there's the balance of that. How are you mentally when it comes to just dealing with these comments, everything like that? Is there anything that you any tips you would give for other creators who potentially struggle? Because creator burnout is a big question, everything. Yeah.
But ultimately, how are you?
Yeah.
How am I? I'm doing great, Jack. Thank you for asking. For creator burnout, I'll work backwards here. I've dealt with it. Of course I burnt out, but I think for me, what's worked for me, and this surely doesn't work for everybody, but what's worked for me is letting yourself burn out and go back up, because it exists like this. It's a wave. You're gonna have your good days and bad days, whether you like it or not. And for me, I just make friends with it. I just say, I'm going to burn out. I'm going to get overworked. I'm going to hate it. Let yourself hate it and let yourself recover. For me, that's what works for me. Because I always see this whole thing of taking a break for 6 months, or, whatever self-care routine that you might have. I almost see it as necessary, but preventing the inevitable. Like you're kind of trying to save a sinking ship, and then you kind of save it, but then your content it still kind of fluctuates. It's not that good, and then you end up in this weird state of trying to hold on to a high. And in reality, you just got to let yourself go down from that high and let yourself go back up. And it's like Sisyphus pushing the stone up the hill and letting it roll down the hill. You guys got to push it back up again. It works for me. That doesn't work for others, but it works for me. And I forgot
let's
the
talk
other
about
questions.
this on a micro level. Like when you find yourself like at the bottom of that hill and like you have to lift the boulder and push it up again, what are some steps you take?
I'll read movies, music, go back to what you love. Watch your favorite movie of all time again. Read your favorite book of all time again. Listen to the music that don't listen to new music. Just listen to the music that you consider your favorite. And to me, it is actually, I find I have a kind of a bit of a hard time remembering what I want and remembering what I like. And you have to almost remind yourself what you like constantly. You have to, it can even get down to eating the foods that you like again, because you have to remember what your tastes are. You have to remember what your preferences are. And in that way, you kind of remember who you are, as cliched as that is. But that's the only way I found that works.
Let's go. I mean, what about, do you have a set time that you record? Or I guess for me, for example, my biggest struggle was, and it still is, like, oh my gosh, I haven't posted a TikTok, for example, today, and I'm like, okay, like after this podcast, I should probably post a TikTok. And that's kind of just eating at me right now. It's like, how about you? Like, I know you said you're going every other day at this moment. Do you give yourself a set time, and so that you don't have to worry about it at all after? That balance.
I wish I was that good in writing and writing it, but like, honestly, no. It fluctuates dramatically because I always get stuck up in the writing. Like that's the hardest part for me, and that's what takes the longest. So sometimes I'll finish at noon, and then I can film, and then I'm done for the day. Sometimes I'll finish writing at like 8 p.m. and I start filming at 9, and then I'll post at like 11:30. It can go late in the night. So there's no really a pattern, to be honest. It just kind of, it comes and goes. And that's what that is. That is what is a bit annoying about just the area of creativity, is that it the professional just sits down and does the job. All right. You shouldn't wait for inspiration, but it is agonizing when you compare what you're like uninspired versus inspired. You can work for 2 weeks on a novel, and then in one day the muse comes to you and you get so much done you get essentially done in one day that you couldn't have gotten done in 3 weeks. And that's what writing and all that gets annoying, because it's an incredibly inspiration based business.
No, I agree. I think that's awesome that at least you've recognized that. You have such self-awareness with that. And I think that's very, very, I think, healthy too, right? Just the moment you're like, here, I am at the bottom of the barrel, where you said, Brendan, just like, let me again listen to the music that I like. Let me get back on this track. Just that self-awareness is definitely step number one. And I look up to that. So that's awesome. Thank you. On my behalf. So
I'm so glad I can lead you to rock bottom.
I love it. But so you've killed it. You've killed it in the past, right? Well, like making these films, you're killing it now. Where do you see yourself 6 months from now, 12 months from now?
hopefully I will have, well, my book will be out within, hopefully within 6 months. I think if I go with if a publisher picks it up, it can take longer, but in 6 months, I hope to be making a movie. I want to be making something kind of on my own without like I say that without the help of like a big studio, as if I would be lucky enough to even for a studio to even be slightly interested in my stuff. I do want to have this sort of, by the shoestring filmmaking approach where I'm just doing it on my own with a few friends and see how good you can do. It's, to me, it's like the ultimate test. See if you can do it without money. So
wow.
Hopefully my book will be out, and hopefully I'll have a movie out or a YouTube channel. And I have not started I have a YouTube channel, but I haven't started doing what I wanted to do with YouTube, like with just like the the horizontal camera and the sitcom style that I wanted to experiment with, because it's just, I know it's going to be endless work. YouTube is notorious, right?
This is something that Dylan actually inspired me on, because I look up to Dylan. If you know Milad too, these two are absolutely killing it. Especially like Milad went from 0 to 1 million subscribers in 24 days, right? Dylan went from 0 to I think like 1.5. He started back in March, and their secret is they take what they do on short form, which they've mastered, what you've mastered, they make it into long form, but by not thinking that a YouTube video has to be this 8 to 10 minute long, highly produced thing, but take your short form videos, flip it into a horizontal, and instead of making it under 60 seconds, make it 61 seconds. And that is now a long form video, right? So like you've mastered this, right? You've mastered short form writing. What if like you start off by making 75-second videos in the same style, but horizontally, right? And then like once you like, because that it goes from now it's endless amounts of work to, hey, this is actually a lot more manageable. And I think the one thing is your YouTube audience will be a lot different than your TikTok audience. I've seen like Milad, Dylan, they don't have the same audience. They repost the same things, replatform the same short form, but they're completely different audiences. So that's just a little tip. Like I'm also in that same boat where I'm like, okay, I want to make a YouTube video. Jack, you're probably there of like, you're making these 8-10 minute long videos as well.
But it's tough, man, especially when you're used to making a 60-second piece of content. Like I'd say my typical process now is I'd say about 2 hours a video, but for a YouTube video it's got to be like 20 hours between my work and everyone on my team's work, and like, is it worth it? I mean, this is kind of my question to you. Like, you have this success on TikTok, you have this great audience who loves this very niche content. Like, what is your aspiration like with wanting to go to YouTube and make longer videos? Like, what do you think that'll accomplish for you? Do you want to tell your story in a longer format? Like, what isn't TikTok giving you?
Well, honestly, just the longer format is what interests me, and the better quality, because YouTube is generally, you have to film it better. It has to be great. You can't just, I'm not sure if you can just do a phone video horizontally and let it pass, because many creators have amped up their game, right, to where they're looking like a Netflix movie basically, but it's a YouTube video. So for me, I recognize how much I learned on TikTok in a year just simply by writing every day. If I didn't even post them to TikTok, if I just went and filmed and wrote TikToks, what you learn in that is invaluable. And what I learned on TikTok is something I didn't learn early enough with writing this book, which is when you write a book when you're younger, and I think I wrote the first draft of this when I was 20, you're a different person 4 years later. And you essentially learned to write a book with your first book. And you can't just publish it. You have to like essentially write 5 books in the first one, because you're learning to write with the first one. Well, it's kind of the same with filmmaking. Like, I'd love to learn how to make films without having to embarrass myself and and publish it and give it out to the world and let it be judged. I'd love to just learn how to make films without making one first.
I mean, that was the case with me. Like, I just recently released a 10-minute YouTube video, and I hadn't released one in a couple months, actually. And that's because it's so hard, and it's so hard to gather a team. Like, I lost my editor, I lost a good researcher, and it took me forever to rebuild that. And then finally, once I get to a place where I rebuild that, make that first video, release it, and then like you see everything that's wrong with it, and you're like, gosh, like what is the point of really like putting so much work into things if it's really going to hinder you, and you're just going to look at it and want to make the next thing. So like that's why it's so hard for creative people who think in all these beautiful, amazing ways to be consistent on social media, and just like to keep iterating and keep changing for the better.
And it's a constant grind. I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
Love it. I'd suggest, I'd love to see, I mean, one, are you reposting all of your TikToks onto YouTube Shorts?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And two, even I'd love to see, just as a bridge way to make, hey, what a 90-second horizontal film. I look back at Dylan and Milad, who are killing, especially they voice things over. They can get a long form video out within 2 hours. They can get a short form video out within 15 minutes. Right. And I mean, it's a view is a view, whether it's 10 hours, 20 hours of work in there versus 2 hours. And so what do you think about that? I'm curious of like, hey, a 90-second video is considered long form, right? Long form on.
I mean, with YouTube, didn't they like, is it considered long form? Because I don't think YouTube, I can't remember the last 2-minute YouTube video I saw. I think they're all like 8 minutes at most, right? Or at least
8 minutes is for mid-roll ads if you want a mid-roll ad in there, but anything above 60 seconds, right? 60 seconds is the short limit, right? Anything above that, it's long form. Most of the vlogs, I helped Dylan film some stuff as he's in LA and we're doing this ice cream shop. They're sometimes like a minute, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And it's a long form video, right?
Okay,
so.
yeah. I mean, I will say with YouTube, I am kind of excited about it because I have all next to no following on it. And that's exciting to me because I remember when I got going on Instagram, to me, Instagram is really exciting right now because it's a smaller audience. And to me, it's a little more intimate, and it's a much different audience too. It's weird. I just thought people from TikTok would follow you on Instagram. No, they're all just new users on Instagram who'd never even heard of TikTok, And so I think YouTube is probably the same thing. It's just going to be a different audience completely. And I'm kind of excited about that because it allows you to experiment creatively. Whereas with TikTok, admittedly, it'll even get to me where I start to think, oh, I have 1 million followers, but I only got 10,000 views this video. Oh, I only, not many people saw this last one or whatever. Whereas on Instagram, you can kind of forgive yourself, and the audience is just they're tighter knit. I think it's a millennial audience mostly. And I remember with this one time I was on a TikTok live and I was singing it was one of these boring nights. I was singing these folk songs from the 60s. And no one on TikTok recognized him. Like no one got him. They're like, yeah, what are you doing, dude? And then I went on Instagram and did it. Everyone recognized him. They were even giving requests from like Cat Stevens and Paul Simon. I was like, whoa, it's an older audience. That's what's going on here. Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Wow. I mean, that's awesome. I haven't heard much success of people from Instagram Reels. You're the first person where I'm like, okay, like that's like, it's killing it for you. That's great.
Yeah, you have a good point though. I don't see too many people having great success with Reels either, to be honest. But I think I don't know. I do think that's just I found a weird niche on Instagram.
No, I love it. I mean, coming back to just the thesis of this whole show, you've got it down, I feel, right? Like the fact that you are also just expanding off social media, you're writing a book, which I want that to be the next question. Is it a collection of short stories? Because I know that's also been hinted. Is it a full-length book? Let's talk about that.
So I would describe it as like a TV show in a book.
Okay.
It's a bit like Fleabag. That's the closest I can kind of come to it, because it's a set of short stories, but it's based on one character, and you keep going back to this character and this character's friends and their adventures that they go on, right? So it's essentially a TV show and a book. So it's not like your traditional short story collection from, Flannery O'Connor or whatever, where it's a different thing each time. You're always going to come back to the same character, and I've been going through hell with it, because I wrote it young, and when you write something young, you gotta up it up to your standards now, and it's a long time. So I'm kind of that's kind of the plan for me, in terms of, I know I'm 1 year in, and we'll see if I survive another year according to the show's thesis, but
Yeah.
I think my plan is to sustain myself with books. I plan to keep writing books.
Yeah.
And if all else fails, like if I don't get any sponsorships from here on out, if I don't, if no production company wants my pilots or anything, I'm just going to keep writing books. And now that's kind of the plan for me. I know it sounds like a lofty goal to write a book a year, but I got a bit of a wake up call when I heard that Michael Crichton was writing these best-selling novels basically while in medical school. So I have no excuses.
It's for each their own, right? I know, like, one of my favorite things is I always go back to Dylan and Malad, just because I think they're huge inspirations to me. But Malad on YouTube was getting the same monthly average views as Mr. Beast, right? And if and because at one point he was posting every single day, and month to month he was getting it, and he was actually getting on the trending tab too on YouTube. And it got to a point where on Twitter there was a gamer, kind of like someone who's been a gamer for a couple of years, who tweeted out at him saying, like, I work so hard on my videos, and I never get on trending, only for some guy making Subway sandwiches to get on. And it just comes back. It's like, I mean, everyone has their own process. And for you to say, like, if someone told me that they can make a book a month, I'll be like, you know what, you somehow have a process where that works for you. I could totally see, right? That's crazy. Like, even Anthony, Dental Digest, he's a dental student, right? But he has 9 million followers on TikTok, 4 million YouTube subscribers now, because he creates after the fact too. It really is for each their own. So I'm excited. I think a huge crux of this podcast is to talk to all different types of creators. And for you, I can see, like, you have a plan. You have a plan for the next 6 months, 12 months, next 2 years, for the rest of your life. And I think that's really inspiring for us, because I couldn't tell you where I'm going to be, like, a year from now, right? And like that's part of it. So
it's the great thing about social media for me, is that you can be a poet in this day and age. You can, whereas 10 years ago that was not the case at all. You couldn't live as a professional poet. Right now with social media, you absolutely can. You can be a professional poet. And for me, what's great about it all, about social media in general, to me, like, the best value that I got out of it was that knowing your art will always have a home. You're not gonna have to depend on a studio to pick it up, or a literary agent or a publisher to pick it up. It's always going to be there, and it's gonna, anything you create, you have a place for it.
I'm feeling good on my end. I think, like, just understanding you, like, your past, where you are today, where you're going, like, I think you're killing it. I took a lot out of this. Jack, do you have anything on your end?
I think I'm good. I think it's super interesting to see how your, like, plan for monetization and career sustainability is different than the majority of creators we talk to and have had on this podcast. It seems to be that you haven't taken any brand deals. Is that correct?
I've taken 2, technically 3 with Hank Green's charity, but that was it. I don't usually do them. No.
It seems...
I was gonna say, like, I might have to do merch pretty soon, because I might be moving to a new city, and I might have to sustain myself somehow. So I might be doing, like, maybe mugs or something. But I really didn't want to do that, because I really didn't want to promote any merchandise before the book because I thought the book was like the perfect thing to come out with first, but that's the plan.
Do you have
the
a good
plan is
do you have a good connection for merch? I have some like the CEO Fanjoy is like a friend of mine. Anyone like that?
oh, cool.
Yeah, I can definitely set up some connections
yeah, I
if you're
know.
interested.
Yeah, I have I'm with WME, so I do have like someone who completely handles merch, and
Great.
and then there's another person who completely handles like book stuff, and so I'm blessed there. I got really lucky there, and so in terms of that, yeah, it seems like I'm okay there, but yeah, wow, it's an odd world, isn't it? Social media,
it's amazing.
like
It really is. And I love how open
Yeah.
you are. Even like just going back to the beginning where your girlfriend, she understood TikTok before, like it was more than just a platform of young people dancing. And that's really what started all this. And like just the fact that you have an open mind of what the future of this looks like is a big advantage, is a huge advantage to so many people that are discounting this stuff every single day, even today, right? Even like the landscape TikTok is today, is the amount of people that just don't understand it or missing out, or just not even open to understanding it, right? The amount of like old marketing heads that are out there that are like social media, like it's still not there's nothing in it. So
it's kind of weird because yes, she did see where it was going, and oddly enough for me, it seems like TikTok was symbolically like my rock bottom, because it was, for me, I was just giving up. I was just gonna download TikTok, build a portfolio, get a job at an ad agency, and stop writing, stop wanting to make movies. And so it's been a curveball because here you are just working your butt off to start a business, to do whatever, to pursue a dream, and you're not giving up, so to speak. And then the one time you do give up, the one time you give up, that's when something actually works. It was a really weird moment for me because no, your parents don't teach you that. Your parents teach you to never give up, and you're going to get what you want. But something great happened out of me just hitting rock bottom. So the point is, kids, give up and see what happens.
Love it. I'd love to end it right on that. So, Mr. American Baron, where can people find you?
American Baron on Instagram and TikTok.
I love it. And then
Awesome.
as for us, if you've made it this far into this podcast, I assumed you like it. So make sure to drop a like, subscribe. We've got so many more guests coming.
Hit that notification bell. If there's any specific guests that you want to see on this podcast, comment down below. We'd love to have them. We'd love to have conversations about creators.
I love it. Always give up, kids. American Baron. Sign off there.